From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good Sunday morning. Austin is handed a win in the courtroom against the Texas Attorney General, and a legal effort to remove Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza was seemingly put to bed, but then revised. More on those stories in just a minute, but first, let's get to the 3 things you need to know in Texas politics. A Central Texas gun store owner is applauding the U.S. Supreme Court for ruling in his favor. The justices struck down a ban on bump stocks Friday, ruling the ATF did not have the authority to ban them back in 2018. Michael Cargill, who owns a gun store in Austin, surrendered 2 bump stocks once the federal ban went into effect. The ban came in response to the 2017 mass shooting at a country music festival in Las Vegas. A gunman killed 60 people and injured hundreds more using guns fitted with bump stocks. President Donald Trump was in office at the time and supported the ATF's ban. The Texas Supreme Court will not take up an in vitro fertilization case, letting a lower court's ruling stand, which states in Texas frozen embryos can be treated as property, not people. The case revolves around a Denton couple who divorced in 2022 but still has 3 frozen embryos. Caroline and Gabriel Anton signed a contract giving Gabriel sole ownership of the embryos, but Caroline argued child custody laws should apply to embryos. Friday, the state Supreme Court declined the case, affirming a lower court ruling giving ownership to Gabriel. The demand for electricity in Texas is rapidly increasing. On Monday, the Texas House State Affairs Committee listened as energy experts updated them on the status of the state's grid. The CEO of ERCOT says just in the last year, projections for how much energy the state will need in the next 6 years doubled, largely due to new industries like cryptocurrency mining. ERCOT leaders say they're adapting plans to incorporate larger demand. On Wednesday, a Travis County judge dismissed Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's lawsuit against the city of Austin over its marijuana policy. Mike Siegel, political director of Ground Game Texas, the group that helped pass Austin's policy, joined me to talk about the ruling. The city of Austin got a win in the courtroom against the Texas Attorney General's office this week. Talk to us about the judge's decision to dismiss that lawsuit.
Right on. Well, so Judge Jan Soifer dismissed the lawsuit filed by the Attorney General, which was challenging Austin's marijuana reform ordinance that was passed by voters in 2022. And this was a policy that told police don't make arrests or give citations for low-level possession of marijuana offenses. And we are very excited about this ruling because it keeps the will of the voters intact. It allows Austin to focus its scarce resources on higher priority public safety needs.
Talk to us about the reasoning that the judge gave as to why she decided to dismiss the case.
Well, the city presented very comprehensive evidence showing why focusing on marijuana enforcement is actually a bad use of resources. It's very complicated now that hemp has been legalized. Basically, to distinguish legal hemp from illegal marijuana requires an expensive lab test. And right now, our crime lab needs to focus on fentanyl analogs, crime scene investigations, rape kits, much higher priority public safety concerns.
You know, this decision, I think, was particularly significant when you consider the fact that the AG's office is suing other Texas cities as well that have this similar ordinance in place.
No, it sets a wonderful precedent. You know, marijuana reform is extremely popular among Texans. The cities, I think 6 cities now, have passed reform ordinances. They've been supported by somewhere between 60 and 85% of voters want these policies. And so basically what cities are saying is, well, marijuana enforcement has been problematic historically. There's been racist outcomes in terms of who's been the focus of this enforcement. It also uses millions of dollars in public resources. And now these cities are able to move forward with focusing on bigger public needs.
And when we talk about low-level marijuana possession, define that for us.
So these are misdemeanor offenses. These are not, drug dealers who are impacted by this policy. These are people with a personal amount of marijuana, a couple ounces or less, basically. And, under state law, these are treated as misdemeanors, so they're not punishable by a long time in jail. And it's entirely up to cities about whether you want to focus on these offenses or other crimes.
And to be fair, police still can issue citations and make arrests for those low-level offenses if they're in combination with something else, right?
Exactly. There's clear carve-outs for both violent crimes or major drug investigations. Also, sometimes police, when there are other offenses charged, they might also seize marijuana. And that's also a part of what the city said in the hearing that happened earlier this week, was, yeah, an officer can still seize the substance and confiscate it, but they're not going to send people to jail for a small amount.
The AG's office has not quite said what they plan to do. We don't know if they're going to appeal. We don't know the future of these other cases, but your thoughts on their next move?
Well, they are going to appeal. Actually, they gave notice at the last minute, might have been before your briefing was complete. But yeah, they are going to appeal. And this is something that's already been considered by the Court of Appeals for this region. The Third Court of Appeals actually is hearing a very similar case involving Bell County, where the city of Killeen passed a policy. So this is ultimately going to be decided most likely by the Texas Supreme Court. But for now, the will of the Austin voters remains intact. Austin can continue enforcing its ordinance.
You were here a few weeks ago telling us about this lawsuit, and that is an attempt to remove the district attorney. Some developments this week that initially seemed good for Garza and then not so much. What happened?
Well, it was a dynamic week with regards to development. So number one, the plaintiff in the case actually filed something in court on Monday seeking the removal of the prosecuting attorney who was appointed by the judge in the case. That is still sort of in flux. No decision has been made, but actually more importantly, and what generated headlines last week was the fact that that prosecuting attorney, by the way, he is the Bell County attorney. That's his full-time day job, if you will. He was appointed to handle this case. But he submitted to the court a motion to dismiss the case, and to do so, Ashley, and this was an important legal distinction, with prejudice, meaning that the case would end entirely. And essentially what he said is that he did a lengthy investigation and found that Jose's actions did not rise to the level of removal under this new law that, again, as we know, went into effect in September.
And if people think politics are coming into play, that's not necessarily the case, because that Bell County attorney is a Republican.
He is, in fact, a Republican. The way this happened, for people who maybe are just now coming into this issue, is that the lawsuit was filed here in Travis County, but under the law, it was sent to the presiding regional judge for this judicial district. That judge is a Republican in Comal County, and under the statute, it was his duty to then appoint, as he did, a special prosecutor to look into the matter, to investigate essentially these assertions that were being made in the suit. And again, to your point, the person appointed to do that is a Republican.
And so where does that stand, that motion stand?
So here is this motion. It's a 3-page motion, and in it he goes through some of the allegations that are put forth in the lawsuit. The main one, Ashley, and perhaps the foundation of this whole issue, is whether or not Jose Garza had a practice of not prosecuting certain crimes, particularly in the lawsuit points directly to drug offenses that are felony drug offenses here in Travis County. Well, essentially what the prosecutor said is, I've looked into this. There is no policy. As a matter of fact, what my investigation uncovered, according to this attorney, the prosecuting attorney, is that Jose Garza may have had policies in place, but changed those directives in August 2023 to ensure that he was comporting with this new law. And the prosecuting attorney, his name is Jim Nichols, went as far as to say that he sought records from the Office of Court Administration here in Travis County to prove up that he was in fact, that Garza is in fact prosecuting those drug offenses. So Ashley, everyone was then waiting for the judge to sign the motion for dismissal, and that's where this case took yet another turn.
Mm-hmm. And so you've got us on the edge of our seats, because what did the judge decide?
By design.
Yeah, of course. So what did the judge decide?
So the judge said in a response late last week that if you want me to sign this motion, I, as the judge appointed to oversee this matter, am going to do more due diligence. And essentially, Mr. Prosecuting Attorney, who I appointed, You need to show me your work. I want you to bring to me sworn affidavits, sworn statements, or possibly I'll hold a hearing where you can put witnesses on the stand to prove up all of the things that you were saying about Jose Garza's actions and policies in this motion. Before I just sign it and take your word for it, I want to hear for myself as the judge these statements that you are attributing in this motion.
What in the world is going to happen next?
Well, I think this could rise to a hearing. I mean, essentially, the judge gave the prosecuting attorney, Jim Nichols from Bell County, 30 days to essentially say, tell me what you're going to do. Are you going to give me these affidavits? Are you going to give me sworn statements? Or should I have a hearing and let you bring in witnesses who can prove up and testify what you were saying in this motion to dismiss? Actually, it's one thing that is legally interesting, I think, to some people who are closely following this, is that this lawsuit, in a way, sort of turns traditional law on its head with regard to Jose Garza is now having to prove that he is not doing something, as opposed to, traditionally someone having to prove something else.
You can learn more about the case at KVUE.com. That's Texas This Week.